Welcome to the Mystical Motherhood podcast. This is Pritamatma, and I have an amazing guest today. Her name is Dr. Laura Brayton, and she owns a holistic chiropractic practice in the New York area, actually in New Jersey. And she has dedicated her entire life to empowering women, specifically through conscious conception and through a healthy pregnancy. And she's created this amazing center for women to go to, focused on helping them bring children into this world consciously. She works in the chiropractic center, but she focuses on pregnancy, pain, and backaches, and third trimester issues such as switching the baby's position and supporting families and little children as they are basically coming onto this earth and needing adjustments. And it's so much more than that, because she brings in all these really, really amazing healers into her center and has such a dedication to her career and to her journey as her own mother. So as her becoming her own mother. So I'm so excited to have her on this podcast today. We go deeply into her practice, her classes, her courses, and also her center and her own journey through spiritual motherhood and conscious conception after her marriage in her later years. So it's a great, great podcast to share as we go into nutrition and we speak about chiropractic work, energy work, turning on your pelvis area, and the importance of really looking at all the parts of your health before you have a child. If you would like to learn more about that, please go to drlaurabrayton.com. If you want to learn more about my work, head over to mysticalmotherhood.com. All of my courses are there and available to purchase. You can work with me one-on-one. You can also go work with Dr. Laura Brayton one-on-one. She's doing telehealth consults. So I'm so excited for you to learn more about this and how important chiropractic work is before you become pregnant. And we're just very aligned and had a great conversation. So enjoy. Let's jump right in. I just did a little introduction, and I'd love for you to just, tell us, I know your story, but I want to hear, how you started your career and why you have such an amazing passion for maternity and for women and how we aligned. And your own process of easily conceiving and birthing. So such a natural process. So just go for it.
Well, I'm very excited to be on this podcast. It's so fun to switch seats and not have to be the host and to have the opportunity to be a guest. But essentially my story began when I was in utero, and my mother was having lower back pain, and my dad, who was a huge advocate for chiropractic and I think secretly would have loved to have become a chiropractor, said, "Hey, why don't you go see my chiropractor and, he'll help relieve your lower back pain." So my mother had never been to a chiropractor, but she went because my dad, supported that decision, and she got a lot of relief. And so therefore I benefited from the adjustment while I was in utero, because babies certainly, receive health and balance when they're in utero, because their position in the mom's pelvis is impacted by the mother's alignment of her pelvis, the sacrum, and how the uterus connects to the sacrum, and can really create the position of that baby and help give mom relief and baby relief, as well as hormonal and chemical balances that occur when the nervous system is in balance. So that was my experience. After I was born, the chiropractor educated my mom, "Hey, bring in your baby for chiropractic adjustments." So I've been under care my entire life. It was part of our family wellness care. But I think back in the 80s, not a lot of families were all receiving chiropractic care, but it was so it was kind of unique. A lot of my friends weren't getting chiropractic adjustments, but my sister and I did, and we loved it. And then, even when I was in college, I'd come home from school, I'd call up my chiropractor, "Hey, I want to come in." So it just became the lifestyle that we lived. And I think the other thing that I love about being in that environment is that the lifestyle isn't just receiving chiropractic adjustments. It's also learning about eating nutritious foods. And we had a garden, and we spent a lot of time in nature, and we were very active and moving and hiking. So it was very much this holistic lifestyle that I was raised in. And I think, and I give a lot of credit to my parents for raising me in that lifestyle. So it was natural for me to become a chiropractor. And then when I did, I was always drawn towards working with pregnant women and babies. It was just something, and I always felt that passion to specialize in that type of chiropractic care.
I have a question. When your mother did this in her womb, was she doing this with you, or did she do this with the other children too?
My sister and I, yes, both of us.
Were you first, or was she second?
First.
Because I believe that each child brings the gift of what they want the mother to start to do, so they begin to learn it in their lifetime. And so when I was pregnant with India, I didn't know what Kundalini yoga was until, after my 120th day, around 4 months. And then I became obsessed with it, and I became a practitioner. And then now she's around it all the time. Right. And so I realized if I had conceived her, I don't believe that would have become a part of my life. And I wonder if at your soul going into her womb created, the desire for her to be she wouldn't have maybe done it without you to such a level. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. I've never thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Because I do feel like that was certainly part of my calling, right? And not just become a chiropractor, but specifically a chiropractor working with pregnant women, perinatal, fertility, all the way through postpartum. So I'm just so, blessed that my mother and father were both, introduced me to that lifestyle at such an early age.
And so then you are really career driven. And you guys, she's awesome. She started this amazing women's center. In a really popular, right outside of Manhattan. And it's gorgeous. It's decorated so beautifully. I was so impressed. And I was like, dang, you did a really good job. How hard did you have to work to get there? Did it just flow naturally as you got into your mission and you knew what you were doing? Was everything just like boom, boom, boom? Or was it kind of a push to get there? And then you're finally in it now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I've always been quite career driven and very mission driven as a chiropractor, and especially a chiropractor supporting families and especially dyads, infants and new moms and pregnant moms. However, it was a lot of work, but I'm celebrating 16 years in practice. So I feel like that hard work was in the beginning, and now it's more easeful. And I do feel like there's more of a grace. And I think also as I've evolved and grown as a person, things are, I'm attracting things certainly easier into my life to help me complete my mission of really my North Star of birthing global peace. Birthing global peace, meaning how do I support more women in having holistic natural pregnancy and birth, and therefore more of a peaceful culture coming from those empowered birth experiences. And that's really my bigger mission here. So I started small with just my little chiropractic practice, and it's growing. And I'm excited to see, the level of impact I can have by really reaching more women with my new online program that just launched now.
I want to talk about your online program, in detail, exactly how, women can get it and what you teach in it, because you have so much experience. But before that, I want to go into just a question, because I think a lot of people are always looking for their mission, and they're feeling lost without it, especially mothers that, are at birth. I talk about within my books and my work, the importance of being creative and birthing something. If you're not birthing a child, birthing something creative. But I find that a lot of women are just lost in what is creative. How do you find that? how did you find your mission? And then how do you keep on track? How do you not allow the sabotagers to come in, your own sabotaging experiences, to not ruin it? And then, all the things that can get in the way, because so many people where you've gone, you don't looking back now, I bet you can have a moment of like, I've done a lot, but until it's just, how do you help people that are looking for that?
Yeah. Wow. That is a very deep question. And it's something, because I work with a lot of women also being in Hoboken that are not yet mothers. They're in their 20s and 30s, and they are feeling a little bit lost, or even women who are already mothers and are feeling lost about kind of their mission and their purpose. And, I have to say, I remember being 5 years old knowing I wanted to be a chiropractor. So that was always just very much a part of me. And always really being interested in like families and that type of thing. Right. So I feel like that's part of, like, I just always knew. And like, even my, I only applied to one college. I only applied to one like, it was just like, I was very, very clear with my path on what I needed to do to get into the professional realm that I'm at, to be able to serve, at the level I want to serve. But I would say when I opened my practice, I was always looking for mentors and coaches in personal development. And that's something that I started, 2007. And that, I feel like, was a big part of what helped me get to where I'm at now. So even though I had a practice, it was still like, it could have just stayed small. Do you know what I mean? I could have continued to help locally and serve and felt like I was living a purpose, but I feel like that wasn't my full destiny. And to get clear on that, it was a lot of working with mastermind groups and women's circles, and surrounding myself with people that were helping me tap into that with different exercises, so that I could get that clarity.
Right. And I mean, I don't know if it's for you too, but for me to get to, finding my own mission, it really was a hyper focus on one thing, where I feel like a lot of people get hyper focused on many things, and they're like, I'm learning this, I'm learning this, I'm learning this. And there was a period that I tested out like different things maybe, but then I really became focused on women and women's health. And then all the birth, right, and the aspects of birth, and then now fertility. Right. And do you find that in your mission, it's like almost like a hyper synchronicity and hyper focus on, this portion of what you're creating in this lifetime? Is that for you too?
Definitely. Once I had that clarity, all the other stuff wasn't, even like I had, I was like, I want to write a book and I have a podcast, but it was still all supportive of that mission of educating and empower women for having this, a higher conscious birth experience, and how that's going to support her as a mother.
And then how has your own spiritual experiences heightened that and put you on a path that's unexplainable?
Yeah. So I think I always knew I wanted to be a mother, but to your point, I was very career driven, very business work focused. And so there was always part of me like, I was dating lots of guys and was like never really settling down. I was looking for the right one, looking for the father of my child. And it took me longer to find that than maybe some women. But I did have to go through these other life experiences first, I believe, to be able to then call in my husband, my life partner, and to be able to, have my son. And I conceived him when I was 39. Right after I got married, I had a very easy conception, had a great pregnancy, because I was following all of the things I had been teaching women for years in my practice. And I had a beautiful home birth in the water. So I just feel like, his birth wasn't really what was what didn't attract me to that. I was already like, this is my mission. And I'm very excited that I got to kind of, personally, take my own advice and follow my own guidance that I give women, and show that, this does work. This is what's possible for women. And don't call me, old, I'm not this old woman. I was like, I'm following this lifestyle that's allowing me to have the type of pregnancy and birth I want.
And so tell us the components of what you've taught all these years and what you've learned and what your method is it's working, and how has it affected the women that you work with?
Yeah. So it is really quite basic in a lot of ways. It's really the chiropractic lifestyle. So it's really just being so clear about how you live your life every day. What type of foods are you putting in your body? How are you nourishing your body physically? How are you impacting your alignment and the nervous system function of your body? And also just doing regular detoxes. That's a big part of my program in the beginning, because this is preconception, is doing a very deep detox, because unfortunately our environment is so polluted with chemical toxins that before getting pregnant, it's really optimal to do a very deep cleanse to help clear out the vessel, the physical body, before a woman gets pregnant.
How do you do that? What would you do? Because there's so many ways to cleanse out there. There's packages, there's Arbonne, there's Dr. Junger, there's medical medium, there's master cleanse. What do you do?
Yeah. So, there are a lot of different cleanse options out there. The one that I use in my office for years now and used for myself is from a company called Zymogen. And it's a medical food, shake essentially that you have to get through a healthcare practitioner. And it's just loaded with antioxidants and anti-inflammatory ingredients. It's specifically for the gastrointestinal system, the liver, and it's just working on our major detox pathways and cleaning it out. While you're doing the shakes, you're taking a liver herbal capsule cleanse with that. And that's why all this has to be done before conception. This is not safe during pregnancy. And then there's a homeopathic liver drainage. And you're following a modified elimination diet. So you're essentially taking out not only junk food, but you're taking out common allergenic foods like gluten, dairy, corn, citrus, soy. And you're eating very cleanly. And while you're eating that way, you also get an opportunity to not only get the inflammation down, because food sensitivities can create a lot of inflammation, which creates dis-ease in our body. But then we're also when after the 28 days and you start to slowly reintroduce these foods, you can become much more attuned to what foods you are sensitive to, because you'll notice more of an immediate reaction, as opposed to if you're eating these foods daily, there could be more of a delayed reaction. And, you might have some joint pain or sluggishness or brain fog and not be able to pinpoint what foods are creating those symptoms.
And how long, do you think that 28 days is enough time? Do you think that we could do it, you think 90 days is better?
It really depends on the person. If they're coming in an overall good health status, then that's to that deep level, that's good. They can continue. But to your point, if they're if they want to get pregnant, it's great to start this work, not just 1 month before you start trying. You want to start maybe 3 to 6 months prior to start actively trying. But that just means you're still eating cleanly, but maybe you're not doing like shakes only, for example, in the middle of the month. You know what I mean? Like you can do more of a maintenance schedule with following the modified elimination diet and maybe 1 to 2 shakes a day. And that's also really important if you need to lose some weight before getting pregnant. If you need to get to that healthy optimal weight, then I recommend doing that maintenance schedule until you hit your goal weight.
And how important is it to eliminate caffeine?
Yeah. So there's so many different mixed messages out there about caffeine. I think all of us are in agreement that, too much caffeine is never a good idea. And I think a lot of people generally do consume too much caffeine. If you're getting a cup of coffee from let's say a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, 1 cup isn't the grande, right? It's 1 cup is this much. So, I think having that understanding of the amount of caffeine, and also the quality is important as well. Is it a digestive aid, like an espresso to help you, digest your meal, like in Europe? But in general, they do find that caffeine is linked to miscarriage in the first trimester. So I think certainly if you're preconception, it's great to start weaning yourself off during this cleanse phase.
Just weaning off. Okay. And I'm sure you have a lot of women coming to you with all the children. Now, what about men? How do do you know how to improve sperm or anything that they can do? Or do you ever work with them?
Yeah. So with a preconception couple, ideally they both do the cleanse. And the reason why is there's this epigenetic component where before conception, there's 50% of the genetics from the egg and 50% from the sperm. And both partners are, responsible for their lifestyle. So if they're both actively making healthier lifestyle choices, they will actually improve the gene quality that they pass along to their child. So this is all done before the conception happens. And I would say that this healthier lifestyle would improve fertility as well, also for both men and women. So yeah, it's very much lifestyle. If you see guys, they do show like smoking marijuana can lower sperm quality. Certainly, saunas, hot tubs impact sperm amount as well. So these types of things need to be aware of. And, the weight, if you're carrying extra weight around, then you're going to be carrying toxins in your fat, and that's going to potentially impact the genes that you're passing along. So there's an empowerment knowing that, 85% of our genes are controlled by epigenetics. So we can control what genes we turn on and what genes we turn off through our lifestyle.
And is there any supplements you recommend that women or men take? And why did you choose what's the name of that?
Zymogen.
Why did you choose that one?
So
is that one better than the other ones?
It's a company that I've known and worked with for years. And I think I really have a lot of trust in the quality of their ingredients and their supplements. And they have a whole line of supplements too. So for example, if a woman is having irregular periods and hormonal imbalances and is looking to conceive, then we'll put her on some additional herbs and nutrients to help restore her cycle and get a normal menstrual cycle. But with Zymogen, they only are sold through healthcare practitioners. And what I like is a lot of supplements, you can find them on eBay or Amazon, and they do not allow that. So like they shut that all down. They invest millions of dollars every year to prevent this type of third-party selling. So they really want it to be essentially somebody who is a practitioner and licensed to be the one helping support and guide patients in and what supplements to take.
So listeners can reach out to you for probably a telehealth visit to see
Correct.
What supplements may be good to work with.
I do a
conception or during pregnancy or anytime, right?
Anytime. It's called a remote bioenergetic session. So I can do it remotely, and I talk to them about what's going on with their health. And that includes autoimmune issues and other types of health, chronic inflammation type of health issues. And then based on that conversation, then I do muscle testing to help determine what supplements are customized for that specific patient. So the cleanse is kind of non-custom, right? But then we can add in specific custom supplements as needed if there's additional health concerns that they need support around. And I also have my own prenatal supplement as well that is available. That's also available on my website, drlaurabrayton.com.
Awesome. So that's the first step. So you do that for maybe 30, 90 days, let's say. Then let's say you're going to conceive in, 5 months. So you do the cleanse, maybe start walking. What other things?
Yes. Let's talk about how you're moving your body. At least here in the New York City area, a lot of people sit all day. So sitting is the new smoking. So how can we encourage more activity, more movement, get a standing desk? Let's talk about your posture. Are you all hunched over your computer? How can we have better ergonomics, especially if you're working from home? A lot of people have been kind of like half-assing it in their home office. And it's like, listen, if you're going to be working from home for a while, let's invest in a quality chair and a standing desk. And let's set a timer. So you go outside and go for a walk, 20 minutes, get some fresh air. There's so many amazing fitness classes you can do virtually now. So if you don't even have time to go to the gym or you want to work out wearing a mask, do a virtual class, like schedule it in, especially if you don't have children yet. You have so much time, you have so much freedom. Believe it or not, I didn't know until I didn't know back then how much extra time I had in my life. But now I have a 3.5-year-old and it's busy. So scheduling in these self-care habits are huge, and then they become a habit after 21 days, where you're moving better, you're moving more, you're sitting up, you're going for chiropractic adjustments, you're getting massage, you're getting acupuncture, you're meal planning on Sundays, you go to the grocery store, get all the ingredients you need for the week. So you're not making poor eating decisions where you're like fast food, quick, you're like, no, I have my healthy meals ready to go to support your fuel for the week. And I think the other thing too is like, what are you thinking about? Like, what are your thoughts? Because thoughts create chemical changes within our body. And if we're stuck in this negative story, then that will really create a lot of inflammation in our body. So we want to look at how can we change those types of stories. And there's so many ways out there. In my office, I do Psych K, which is really powerful for addressing subconscious beliefs. Hypnotherapy is another way, EFT. There's so many different ways to help address our subconscious patterning and change our story.
And I've mentioned many times, like different podcasts, how powerful. I mean, I always am a big fan of Kundalini yoga because it reprograms your subconscious. But then there's also hypnotherapy, and I've talked about Lacey Phillips' method, and she's online. She's easy to access. She's an amazing hypnotherapist that I listen to them every day. And I feel like I've gotten just as much out of hypnotherapy as I have Kundalini yoga. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if that's true, if I'm doing one or the other. I mean, like you, I focus on one thing, and I do it I take it as if it's my deepest practice for the rest of my life. And I really, really do it deeply, but I find I change more when I really get into one thing.
Yes.
I've done that with both of those.
And I would say I agree with that. I personally like to do that as well. But I think what's cool is there are so many different modalities out there that people will resonate with different modalities. So you find you try different ones, you find the one that works for you, and then you dive deep.
Right. True.
Yeah.
So anything else that you use as a part of your method
So when I created the Brayton birth method and the online program went live, I put a lot of, and especially now having gone through pregnancy and birth myself, something that came up for me that was not part of the teaching I did before was not even about the pregnancy and the birth. It was about my relationship with my partner. So I found that when you're going through this major life event, and it doesn't just impact the woman, it impacts the couple, right? It put a stress on our relationship, and we were newlyweds. I gave birth 3 days before my 1-year wedding anniversary. And so we were still in that newlywed phase, but I found that the stress of pregnancy and birth, and then certainly having a newborn, did stress our relationship. And so I've been learning about how communication, and specifically in marriage and with partners who are looking to become parents, how can we improve on that? And once again, I wish I had known this preconception. Wasn't something really on my radar, and now it is.
So what do you teach women and men and women? What kind of things can they talk about?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about really learning how to communicate in a healthy manner. Disagreements will probably come up, but there's healthy ways to disagree. And it's really kind of recognizing back to that subconscious pattern. What did I learn as a child about how to communicate with an intimate partner by watching, in my case, my parents and how they communicated? And then what did my husband learn from his parents? So, and then how can we maybe do better than that, right? How can we improve on that and become more conscious of when we are triggered by our partner, how we're not just reactive to that and blaming and name calling and things that are hurtful to the relationship, but how can we actually have a disagreement in a healthy, not necessarily calm, but in a more productive manner that's healthier for our relationship and will also be healthier for us as parents.
Yeah. So I've talked about this a lot of my work too, where I found that in many couples that they meet at the level of the wound. I call it the original wound in my newest book. And so if one of their wounds was 12 and one of their wounds was 8, they will actually meet at the level of a 12 and 8-year-old when they're feeling scared, fearful, or fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you advance in consciousness and become more aware, you actually just meet at the age you're at. You're like, I am, 36, I'm 51 in this moment, and I'm acting that way. Right.
Right.
So what do you say to the people that are listening that aren't, they don't have maybe a partner so conscious, or they're not really that conscious of their own patterns yet? That's what you're saying is really, advanced and aware. Where do we begin if we're just on the beginning of awakening?
Yeah. So there's some great resources out there, like after the baby. Oh, what is the name of that title? Baby makes 3. Are you familiar with that?
No, I don't know that.
Okay. So it's a relationship. They're psychologists, a relationship couple, and they talk about this type of communication. So even just starting by reading a book about this, and you can start to recognize when you go into when you start to be nasty, like you start to name call your partner because they've triggered you. You read about it in the book, and ideally it's reflected back like, oh yeah, when I'm mad, this is what I do. And then you learn through that, like how you can, first of all, the awareness is the first step, right? Being aware that you're doing this. Ideally, your partner's also reading the book and becoming aware of it. There's therapists, if you wanted to work with a professional that's more objective and is able to kind of mirror back to you and your partner about how you're communicating. So you can learn. There's an ability to learn is what I'm saying, and grow if you recognize that this is an issue.
And what about all the people that are thinking, I didn't do this when I had a baby, or I didn't, I wasn't conscious. I wasn't, prepared like this, or I had a surprise pregnancy, or didn't go like that, or, that are in that right now. What can they do to?
Yeah. So they're already a parent, right?
Yeah.
And so now there's an opportunity. So it's never too late. So it's like, well, it's just like you can still continue to grow and evolve your consciousness. And I think ideally, if your partner is still around, which I unfortunately do know a lot of times couples end up divorcing after children because these triggers just become too, decisive. What I'm trying to say, split them apart. But the whole point is that your children will also continue to be a mirror for you of where there's an opportunity for growth. So I don't know. I personally love to grow. So I'm always, I went to so many Tony Robbins events. I'm like, I want to learn more about how I can always improve myself and serve at a higher level. It's just something that lights me up and fills me with joy. So I enjoy reading these types of books and going to live events and seminars and, like you said, podcasts. I mean, you could just listen to so many mentors out there. I have a great podcast, Well-Adjusted Mama, and I have so many amazing guests who've been on there that are just sharing their wisdom and knowledge. And if you just commit to listening to this or reading these types of books, these are the beginnings. You start to awaken and you start to be like, oh, wow, there's something else available for me, right? I can get unstuck.
Yeah. And it really starts, for what you're saying, Laura, is it really starts, for me, it really started with the physical body. And then then the emotional, then the mental. I mean, it's kind of all at once, but it really isn't. It's a step-by-step process of the physical body. I just intuitively started to do a ton of yoga, and I intuitively started to run through the woods. Like I had to work through my physical body first. And other people may have an illness, an autoimmune come up, or something comes up that makes you work through that part of you, because you have to get through the density. And then as you move forward, the emotional body becomes clear, and then the mental body. And then you go into the really high spirit. Do you find that too?
I think universally the physical body is always foundational. And that's something I've also learned from my mentors. And I just see it every day in my chiropractic practice. I see people come in. I don't have a pain-based practice, but I do see people come in at times in severe pain, and it's emotional, right? But we have to address that physical pain or they're not going to be able to move on, right? And that's kind of the beauty and gift of chiropractic, is I can really do so much with that foundation and structure. And then I see them start to make different choices in their life when they're feeling better physically. So yeah, if you're in pain, it is hard to grow and evolve. Like that, the pain is all you can focus on. But when you feel good in your body, there's so much opportunity there.
And I also see that people can be, it looks like, it appears most people can be stuck in the physical body for many lifetimes. And it takes, it takes them even that's the conscious awareness we're speaking about, is that you move, you have to be consciously aware of that. Oh, this isn't just my physical body. This is my emotional body. This is my mental body. When you're in the beginning of it, you don't understand that they're all connected. And it's like in my first book, Mystical Motherhood, I use Maslow's hierarchy to talk about how you go into these higher spiritual realms or become that self-actualized human. And you have to go through these different levels of yourself, which also go into what we're talking about in the beginning. Preconception is there's levels.
Yes.
There's levels of the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual that all have to be addressed to become a whole person, to create a whole person.
That's right.
And in your chiropractic process, tell us some stories about women who've come to see you and how they've changed, even with the basics of using it. Because a lot of people don't even know, like, before you give birth, you go to a chiropractor. That's new to most women.
Okay,
so how do you explain that?
So, I would say even now, the majority of my practice, women are coming in for their first visit during their pregnancy. And ideally, I'd love to see them preconception and work with them in doing the cleanse and structurally addressing their alignment. But a lot of them are coming in during the pregnancy. They're coming in because the Facebook moms groups are all saying, okay, they're having back pain, let's say, or neck pain or headaches. They're not able to just reach for a pill like they might have pre-pregnancy. So they're looking for some relief. Maybe the baby's in a breech position and their girlfriends are all like, oh, you have to go to this chiropractor, right? And also that's the other thing to remember. It's not every chiropractor specializes in pregnancy and babies. So you want to find one in your area that does. You can go to the ICPA #4kids.org. ICPA4kids.org or .com and find a chiropractor is on there. And the chiropractors listed there are specialized in the Webster Technique, which is for pregnancy, or they have pediatric training and or both, like I do. So anyway, so if they come in, let's say second trimester or sometimes third trimester for their first visit, they're coming in a lot of times with some pelvic misalignment issues, some sacroiliac joint dysfunction, round ligament pain, pubic symphysis pain, headaches. These types of things are all quite common during pregnancy, but they're not normal. And what's exciting is there's a drug-free approach to help address these symptoms and eliminate the symptoms with chiropractic. It's safe, it's gentle, and it's essentially correcting these misalignments in the structure of the pelvis and spine. And then taking stress off the nervous system so the body can heal itself. So these women might come in with back pain, but then the back pain we're able to resolve quite quickly, usually within a couple of adjustments. But then they'll also be like, oh, my reflux has improved, or my constipation has gotten better, or my migraine headaches have gone away. So it's like there are other symptoms that they had that they didn't think were related to the back pain are also improved because of the nervous system function that we're addressing. So that's something I see a lot. I also see women that are having a baby in a transverse or breech position in the third trimester. They're wanting to avoid a surgical birth. And unfortunately, most practitioners nowadays do not vaginally deliver a breech baby. So these are scheduled C-sections. And so they're looking for other options. And the Webster technique is really, it's so simple, but it's 85+% effective with getting a transverse or breech baby to go head down.
Yeah,
and
it worked for me for both of my babies.
Wow.
And I went to the chiropractor, and the chiropractor turned sage in India.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I would say it's like, I mean, it's not like an external cephalic version, like where, the OB is pushing on the belly to turn that baby manually, which is quite forceful and has a lot of risk to it. All I'm doing with the Webster technique is literally balancing that woman's pelvis and getting the pelvis back into its proper alignment. And the way that's so effective is because a lot of times, because the uterus does attach to the front of the sacrum, if that woman's sacrum or tailbone is out of alignment, it's going to create this intrauterine constraint. And that's what causes that malposition of the baby. When we balance the pelvis, we balance the ligaments, we balance the muscles, then the baby is able to go head down, vertex, which is the position they want to be in. And then the times that it doesn't work is really because there's a non-musculoskeletal reason for that breech position, like a malformed uterus or a short umbilical cord. And if it's a first time mom, we don't necessarily know about what her uterus shape looks like or whatever, but I would say regardless, it's safe and, it still helps women feel better, even if the baby doesn't turn. So it's worth trying if you have a baby that's not head down. And the earlier, the better. I have women coming in at 36, 37 weeks. I would really have loved to have seen them around 32 to 34 weeks.
And do you think that this kind of work, chiropractic work helps with conception?
Oh, yeah, because of the nervous system function. So the nervous system is the computer of our body. It controls every cell of our body. And especially when we're talking about conception, what do we need to be optimally working? Our reproductive organs. So the nerves going from our lower back to our uterus and our ovaries are coming from like around L3, L4 level, the lumbar spine. And if there's a vertebrae out of alignment in that lower back, it can impact how well the brain is communicating with those organs through the nervous system. So I do find that by getting that specific segments of the spine back in alignment, we're able to help. Certainly the most instantaneous thing is getting women's menstrual cycles regulated. So women that have irregular periods or painful periods, then we adjust their lower back and their periods regulate typically quite quickly. Where I've even had women, like let's say they were a few days late for their period, they get an adjustment, they go to the bathroom and they have already started bleeding. It can be that fast. So it's just like turning the power on, and then the body's like, oh, this is normal function. Let's get back to it, right?
Right.
It's just allowing the body to have normal physiological function. And if the body isn't having that, which is including fertility, if the body is having challenges with that, we have to identify where is the block.
It's really interesting. It makes me think of, I remember reading in Medical Medium where he says, well, if you've been on birth control your whole life, you're telling your body to turn off. And then You're doing that for 15 years. And then you all of a sudden think you can get off birth control and then tell your body to turn on. Yeah. And so he explains how you have to provide energy to that part of your body to like energetically say you're to turn on, but nobody would think these things. They just think get off birth control, you'll get pregnant, which doesn't always equate,
sometimes
right?
It happens, but not always. And it makes, to me, like, why would you think your body would just like snap right back on?
Because the doctors tell you it will.
Well, okay.
That's why. And they're like, yes, don't worry, get off of this and you'll be fine. But it's not the case for everyone.
And yes, we know some women that get pregnant immediately after going off the pill. So we know it is possible. But I would even say, like, don't you want some time to detox all those synthetic hormones out of your body before you get pregnant? And that goes back to that cleanse.
Right. Now, if you were to do this and have a baby, let's say it's you and you, from everything you've learned, right? How long would you detox for?
I did 6 months before I conceived my son.
On purpose or on purpose? On purpose.
I knew I was getting married. I knew I was turning 39. I knew I wanted to start trying as soon as we got married. And so I started before my wedding.
And How important do you think it is to be married for the women that are listening that are in these kind of alternative relationships or?
Yeah, I don't think it's important at all. It was important to me.
Okay.
But I don't think that's relevant for every woman. I think for me, I just grew up with that vision. I wanted to attract a partner. I wanted it to be a husband. I wanted to have that in my life. And I wanted him to be the father of my child. So that was my story. But I do think, and I do want to share this because I actually heard this story today of a woman locally in the area who was like, I never want to have a child. I never want to have a child. She was in a toxic relationship, breaking on and off with this guy, and then finally ended it, attracted a new partner, and now just had a baby girl. So in other words, sometimes even our relationship with becoming mothers can very much be impacted by our intimate relationship. So being in a healthy, intimate relationship, I think is ideal. I mean, but there are single moms out there as well. I personally can't imagine. I think it's really hard for me to be a mom with a partner.
And next question. So this is for you because you're the expert, and this is what you would do for yourself. And also, we all know that you're very driven, but so we can find a balance for the listeners. But you would do 6 months, and you did 6 months, and then what did you do with your body while you were, how did you work out during those 6 months?
Oh yeah, I was very committed. I had a trainer, so I was doing a lot of strength training because I really wanted to stay fit. And it's interesting because, in the past I had ran the New York Marathon, and that was really depleting for my body. So that was something that I wasn't interested in running during this preconception stage because for my physical body, that felt like it was too hard. It was too hard on it. So I was doing the strength training, and I was doing biking, and I was doing, bar type classes. So getting my heart rate up, but without the pounding of going for a run, for example. So I just found workouts that felt good for me. Yoga was a big part of my life, especially during the pregnancy. But the preconception stage, I probably worked out a little bit harder. And I did maintain that for part of my pregnancy as well. And then I got to a point where I wanted to slow it down, and I kind of switched more to just the prenatal yoga classes.
And did you put your husband on any specific herbs or supplements that you recommend to the listeners?
Yeah. So before our wedding, we had already talked about wanting to have a baby. I said, honey, I want you to do a cleanse. And he was like, okay. And he was, he had done cleanses in the past, but I was like, okay, let's do one now, pre-wedding, preconception. And I would say he did it half-assed, but he did do it a little bit. And I think that was the other thing is, when you're dealing with a partner, you can't make them do anything. So I model and I inspire, but at the end of the day, I have to also be at acceptance that he did what he did. Maybe instead of, maybe he did the shakes for 2 weeks, let's say. So, it's better than zero.
Anything else you want to share with us before you go that you've seen work for women in your community or?
Yes, I want to talk about a birth team. So I think that's something that's really been missing for a lot of women. They have, let's say they get pregnant and they, didn't put a lot of work into getting pregnant, or even they did, maybe they saw a fertility specialist. Now they're pregnant and they have the OB that maybe they've been seeing for years for their, annual PAPs. And they just assume, well, this is going to be my birth provider. And I think it's really important to recognize, number one, that, your GYN who was, essentially handling your pelvic exams on an annual basis as a non-pregnant woman may not be the right fit for you as a birth provider, right? There's a whole different skill set regarding your prenatal and birth care. And in addition to your birth provider, which also can be a midwife. So understanding that when you are pregnant, especially in the beginning of your pregnancy, you can interview different birth providers to find which birth provider is the right fit for you. And certainly if you're a low risk healthy woman, interviewing midwives makes a lot of sense to me, but also recognizing you can choose where you give birth. I personally gave birth at home, and it was the most amazing experience of my life. So recognizing that is an option for you if you're low risk and healthy and don't have any health complications, working with a midwife. And then in addition to the birth provider, having a team like a doula, a prenatal chiropractor, massage therapist, acupuncturist, yoga instructor, like a team that is here to support you. And then even already knowing ideally while you're pregnant, who your lactation consultant is, if you're wanting to breastfeed, like kind of having that team's lined up for you. I had a postpartum doula who was extremely helpful. So it was starting to interview and, get names from these, like myself, I give out a lot of referrals to these types of providers, or you can ask your girlfriends who they used. But just knowing that these types of services exist, and it's all about supporting women during their pregnancy, birth, and postpartum phase, and that you don't have to do it alone. Like you can have a team supporting you.
So how can people find you in the area? How can they do telehealth with you? How can they find your classes and private consults and your team that you work with at your center?
Yeah. So the best way is to go to my website, drlaurabrayton.com. That's GRLAURABRAYTON. And it has it has a link to my practice, which is Hoboken Family Chiropractic and Wellness. And you can sign up for in-person sessions as well as virtual for the private one-on-one sessions. And then also there's a link on the site for my new online program, which is in a group setting. It's called Brayton Birth Method. So you can go there to join that. I have my prenatal vitamins available on the website. And then if you're interested in doing the cleanse, then that would be through that private virtual session. We can do a consult, and then we can have the products shipped right to your home.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. And please read the notes, and we'll have all of Dr. Laura's information, Dr. Laura Brayton's information below. Thank you so much.
Thank you.